I'm excited to be here. As you guys know, you would have met me on JB's first Live with JB show. And I'm very excited to be able to give back to my home island of Tobago. I'm one of those who has always stayed very connected, and with over 30 years here in the US, working in corporate America and then owning my own business, I am more than excited to be able to take what I've learned and translate it into something that could help the people of Tobago. So we are calling it the Tobago Pivot. And when we talk about Tobago Pivot, I want you guys to imagine what a pivot is, right? With a pivot, what you're doing is you keeping one foot steady on anchored on the ground, and you're making a turn, right? That's a pivot. So our goal is to get all of you out there, whether you are an individual person just trying to recover and make it through this pandemic and come out on the other side, or you are a small business or big business trying to figure out how to recoup all that lost revenue. We want to be able to help you pivot. And if each of us, if each individual business, if each of you individually in your own space could make that pivot, then together in unison, we will be helping Tobago pivot. So that's the goal, and that's what Catch the Wave wants to be able to do for all of you out there, especially the business owners who are just struggling right now and clueless about what to do. So, so I'm going to come back to the pivot later on and what we are planning to do for the Tobago community. But just to take a little lesson from my pivot up here. So I own two Paul Mitchell high-end cosmetology schools, right? As Corelli said, one here in Atlanta, which is my home base, and one in Sacramento, California. And so when we got wind, just a little wind of what was coming with this pandemic before any lockdown or anything, we sprung into action to make what was a dramatic pivot. I talked about a pivot being a turn. We had to make like a 180-degree turn to go from what is a very hands-on industry and profession. Cosmetology, as you guys know, is a very practical thing. Go from a 100% in-house on the ground operation to a 100% virtual operation. And I'm proud to say we did it all in the span of 2 weeks, and we were ready to go with a complete virtual operation, both virtual education and virtual business operation, just in 2 short weeks. But the key was to pivot early. We didn't wait for the government to say lockdown. We started planning right away, and we kind of just built on the strengths and capabilities that we had, and were able to do something that I have to admit I did not think was possible to do, right? So that's one key, is like when you're going to pivot early. So this is why we are coming to you now. So for the businesses out there, don't wait until the lockdown is over to try to figure this out, right? Start figuring it out now. So at Catch the Wave Solutions, we are offering a free consultation for those businesses out there who are kind of trying to find their way back after this lockdown is over, right? And so back to this Tobago pivot. So we are going to be starting a series on this whole concept of the Tobago pivot, right? And but like I said, what we want to do is to get all of you, and whether it's you just doing your own thing, like if you take JB for example, she had to make a pivot. And the way I want you to think about this as we start this journey with you, helping the businesses to recover and recoup their lost revenue. So what we're going for is to get to where we are all together doing a Tobago pivot dance, right? But the dance, learning a dance starts with one step. So today I just want to talk about one step, and you guys will have to keep tuning in to hear the rest of the story for how we're going to get from lockdown to booming business. So the first step in the pivot, the first thing you have to realize, like I said earlier, in a pivot, right? Your one leg is anchored and you're making a turn, right? So now that anchor, think about that one leg that is anchored as you figuring out what you're really, really good at. What is your, we call it core business. Like, what is the thing that you are really good at? So I want you guys to be thinking about that and post it for me, because again, it's not just businesses, it's you in your individual life, right? You have to first figure out, because you want to keep yourself anchored on something that you could count on, right? Your core competence, something that you're really good at. So that's the first thing you have to figure out. And when you're figuring out what it is you're good at, I don't want you to tell me, like in JB's case, I don't want her to tell me social media. I want you to dig a little deeper and say, why is it that social media is something that I'm good at? And so in JB's case, when I say, what are you going to anchor around? What are you really good at? JB is just good at just engagement, engaging with people and telling a story, right? So I want you guys to post for me. This is your first pivot lesson. I want you guys to start posting in the comments, what are you really, really good at? That is going to form the foundation of your pivot, right? And once you have that figured out, in the upcoming segments, we could talk about how you know which direction to turn, right? So if you're going to pivot, you have your anchor, but you're going to turn left or you're going to turn right, or which direction you're going to turn. And there are certain things that will dictate what direction you're going to turn, right? Is where it's what market is available to you, and then it's your anchor is what you're good at, but what are you really passionate about doing that people would be willing to pay for, right? So those are the things we'll talk about coming up, and at the end of it all, there's a third element of this. The only reason my business is here, my business is called the Isani Institute. The reason why we were able to make that pivot, and I'm proud to say we did not lay off a single one of our employees throughout all of this. The reason we were able to do it is because we had a solid financial plan. So that's something we'll be covering for you as well, that financial plan. How are you gonna fund? So it's not good enough to say what I'm really good at, what I'm passionate, what market can I serve, who are my customers, but where are the funds going to come from? So those of you who might have gotten grants and all that, where the funds going to come from, and how much money am I going to make with this? So these are things we'll cover along the way, but just wanted to introduce you guys, and hopefully we have some people thinking about that core competency that you're going to pivot around.